It has never happened, and it never will happen, and that is why it is told. This is a true story, word for word, an episode from my life in Africa. My Kikuyu squatters came up to my house and asked me to shoot a lion that was disturbing their cattle. We were just 15 miles from the farm, a distance that really has no importance to a lion at all. I hadn't taken my own rifle with me in the car, but Dennis handed me his and whispered to me, "You shoot this time." His rifle was too long and too heavy for me. Oh, if this shot was to be a declaration of love, ought not then the weapon to be of the very best quality? You may say that all hunting is a kind of love affair, and it may even turn into a noble platonic love affair, after which you may part with quiet hearts. People have begun to photograph lions and animals of all sorts, and it's a very refined sport and nice trophy to have afterwards. I was not a great photographer, but I was a fairly good shot with a rifle. When I was young and first came out to Africa, I was so keen on shooting any kind of game that I could hardly rest till I had got through it all. Later, I found it unnecessary and ugly in a way to take a life that belongs into that great landscape and has taken 10 or 20 years, or in the case of an elephant, perhaps up to 100 years to grow into its present size. So I gave it up. For the last 10 years in Africa, I hardly fired a shot. With lions, it was different. I shot my last lion just before I left Africa. As the shot boomed to all sides in the big landscape and echoed from the hills, it looked to me as if the lion lifted a couple of feet up in the air and off the ground straight up before it collapsed. When I went up to it, I found that the shot had hit straight into the heart. It was as it should be. When in Denmark I told my friends that I would give the lion skin to the king, they said, "Oh, this is the worst piece of snobism we've ever heard of." I said to them, "You don't understand. You do not know what you're talking about. You haven't lived as long as I out of your own country." And they told me, "Oh, the king will be in despair to get this lion skin. What on earth is he to do with it?" I must say that if the king had really been in such despair, he took it very nobly. For only a short time after, he thanked me in a letter written in his own hand for the skin that I had given him. When you're a long way from your own country, as I was there, letters mean much more to you than they do here. You generally keep them about. You put them in your pocket and take them out from time to time to reread them. I stuck the letter in the pocket of my old khaki slacks as I rode out from the farm. The work I was going to inspect there was the failing of a bit of wood where we were going to plant coffee. Just before I arrived, a very sad accident had taken place. A young Kikuyu named Kitao had not managed to get out of the way when a big tree had been felled, and he had had his leg crushed under it. I heard his long, low moans and wails at a distance. His leg was a terrible sight. The bone was sticking out of the wound. I stuck my hand in my pocket for little bits of sugar I would carry with me when I was out riding. It really seemed as if Kitao's terrible pain lessened as long as he had the sugar in his mouth. He kept on saying, "Give me more, Masabo, give me more." And in the end, I had no more. Then he moaned and wailed as his pain began again. "Have you got nothing to give me? Have you got nothing to give me?" In despair, I once more stuck my hand into my pocket and stumbled upon the king's letter. I said to him, yes, Kitao, I have something here. I've got something Nzuri sana. Very good indeed. It is a letter from the king in my own country, and everybody knows that a letter from a king written mukuna yaki by his own hand takes away all bad pains. Give it to me then, said Kitao. I placed the letter on his breast and my hand upon it and tried to put all my strength of mind into my hand. After a short time, his face that had been so terribly distorted grew quiet. He nodded and said, Yes, it's Mutsuri. Yes, it's Mutsuri sana. I kept it there until the fire came up with the car and we were able to lift Kitao up into it. I wanted to sit by the wheel and drive myself, but no, he wouldn't allow me that. No, Mutsaba, no. He said, Farah can drive the car. You are to sit with me and hold the letter where you had it before. Otherwise, things will be as bad as they were before you brought the letter. So I sat beside him with my hand on the letter and kept it there till we got to the hospital in Nairobi. They allowed me to follow him up into the operation room, and they allowed me to go in there with him, and I held the letter until he was unconscious. Well, luckily, they managed to put his leg together again, and except for a little limp, he was all right. So now the rumour spread on the farm that I had got this Barua Asuldani with its wonderful power. First, people timidly came up to inquire about it, and later on, when they had got somebody ill or in bad pain, they brought him up to my terrace outside my house and asked if I could place the Barua Soldani on him for a while. And later still, they came up to ask, so to say, the loan of the Barua Asoldani to bring it to somebody very ill in their own huts. I've noticed this particular attitude or mentality with the natives in many other ways. They are in their own way in understanding with the condition of life. They do not strive against it as we do. Some things can be done, other things cannot be done. Later on, they began to show an interest in the king who had written this wonderful letter and came up and asked me about him. And they asked me, was he tall? I think that must have been at the time when the Prince of Wales, the Duke of Windsor, had been out to dine with me at the farm, and they had been struck by the fact that a person of such tremendous power should be so small and slight. Well, very luckily, and with regard to my king, yes, he's very tall. He's about the tallest man in his country. They also wanted to know whether his horse was as Kali, as fierce and wild to ride as was my own horse. And then they wanted to know whether he laughed. This must be a thing in their relations to white people. They said to me more than once, we can see that you are of a different kabila, a different tribe to the other white people out here. You do not get angry with us. You laugh at us. I've still got the king's letter, but by this time it is no longer possible to read it. It is all covered with spots of old, dark, dried blood and with matter. So, to any of us who would like to call ourselves servants of the world and would have the same wish that I do, I wish that at some point I will put something in writing with my own hand, Makuna Yaki, that will end up being a Barua Asoldani to people in distress.